Friends, we are going to begin the service at this time. Officiating today's service is Cantor J. O'Brien. The cantor will approach the family to perform the ancient act of Kriya.
And folks can kind of gather closer if you're comfortable doing so. We have a little room under the tent, and it's getting to be a sunny day. This blessing of Kriya reminds us that in ancient days, we would literally tear our garments as a sign of grief, so that the outward tearing is symbolic of the inward tearing of our hearts in moments of loss. So Eddie and Bob, if we can, and you're fine standing or sitting, it's totally fine. We're going to just repeat after me these Hebrew words of blessing. Baruch Atah Adonai Dayan Ha'emet. Blessed is God, the true judge of all. And at that point, we're going to tear these black ribbons that you're wearing in fulfillment of this ancient ritual. And everyone can get comfortable, have a seat if there's one available. Welcome everyone. Okay. Are we good now? Just one. Sorry. It's on.
Now it's on.
It's on. Okay. Good. Thank you. So we'll offer these words of welcome and a short poem, which will kind of root us in this moment in time. This is penned by Rabbi Alvin Fine. Birth is a beginning and death is a destination. Life itself is our journey. From childhood to maturity, youth to age, from innocence to awareness, ignorance to knowing, from foolishness and perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength and strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness, and we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, joy to gratitude, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until not looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not in the high place, but in having made the journey, the sacred pilgrimage of life, step by step. Birth is a beginning, death is a destination, and life is the journey we all share. So today we gather to remember the life of a special and beloved individual, a caring wife, a devoted mother, a loving sister, a doting daughter, a loving aunt, and loyal friend. Today we honor the life and legacy of Libby Lauria. My name is Cantor J. O'Brien, and while I did not have the honor and the privilege of knowing Libby personally in life, it is an honor to be here with friends and family as we celebrate and share in the blessing of her memory and offer one another words of tradition and comfort in this time of mourning. The Jewish funeral service is fairly simple. It consists of a few readings, chanting from the book of Psalms, and concludes with the recitation of a Hebrew memorial prayer known as El Malei Rachamim and the Mourner's Kaddish. So we'll now turn to words in our programs, the recitation and the reading of Psalm 23. We'll acknowledge also this ceremony is special because of Libby's love of Jewish music and of Jewish tradition. So throughout our service this morning, we'll hear some words of music and before we get to the first chanting, we'll read together in English Psalm 23 in our programs. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai ro'i lo echsar mihinotei sheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yanach aleini nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magelei tzedek yancheni b'magelei tzedek למען שמו גם כי ילך מגץ על מוות לא יירא רק כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויי אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי כל ימי חיי ושבתי מבית אדוני לאורך ימים אדוני ראוי לא אחסר אדוני ראוי לא אחסר. Can't help but notice the sound of these ancient words mixing with the sound of wind and the birds singing. It's truly a beautiful moment. And to add layers of meaning, it's now an honor to call up Bob, Libby's son, to share some reflections in this holy moment.
Thank you, Cantor J. To begin, I want to thank all of you for being here to celebrate my mom's life. Particularly thanks to my out-of-town guests, my cousin David and Amy from Detroit, Mike and Lauria, also from Detroit, and my dear friend Mark Salinger from New York. I prefer to think of today as a celebration, as Mom leaves behind many loved ones, especially me and my dad. But I also recognize that Mom was a fierce, loyal, lifelong friend. She could always be counted on and would never shy away from lending a helping hand. Some of her friends appropriately referred to her as an Ashes Chayil, a woman of valor. And last but not least, I must mention my dachshund Bernard, whom my mom thought of as her grandson. Most of you know that my mother had an opinion on almost any topic. I'd like to think of that as her zest for life and a fervent passion that she possessed. It is this passion that made her famous amongst her family and friends. In fact, it made her famous among my friends. If she ever had the opportunity, my mom would have been the best contestant that Let's Make a Deal ever saw. She was an expert negotiator. Need to make a return, get a refund, get something for free, let's ask Libby. My mom always taught me, if you have a problem, ask for the chairman of the board. He will get it solved for you. My mother was the social media tool of her time before Facebook and all the things that we have today. My mom loved sports. She was I don't know if all of you know this, my mom was an Illinois women's state ping pong champ in the early 1970s and early 1980s. And my mother, not to tout her own horn, but she did. She called the local WMAQ and CBS stations and told them I'm the women's champ. And she got interviewed on the local news, brought me and my dad down to the studios at WBBM and Channel 5. And they even came to our house with a mini cam and did a whole presentation on my mom. My mom, that was my mom. My mom loved to travel. In her single day, she went to Florida, Cuba, and Mexico. We traveled all over the country and the world together as a family, which included 2 special trips to Israel, once which was for my bar mitzvah. Twice Mom and I traveled solo, a trip to Hong Kong, and another on a Caribbean cruise. As her son, I never wanted for anything. Through the years, we laughed a lot and we cried, but mostly we shared and experienced life together. Dad and I will sorely miss her, but these fond memories will last forever. I love you, Mom. I always will. Thank you.
Yasher Koach, Bob. It's beautiful. And as many gathered here may recall, Libby loved music, especially Jewish music. And so in her memory, we offer the following Israeli folk song. It's called Bashana Haba'ah. And it's a song that was written by an Israeli songwriter, and it speaks about our hopes and dreams for the future. So I'll just read a translation of a portion of this song. Next year, we will sit on the porch and count migrating birds. Children on vacation will play catch between the house and the fields. You will see, yes, you will see how good it will be in the future. בשנה הבאה נשב על המרפסת ונספור ציפורים נודדות. ילדים בחושה ישחקו תופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. I can't help but look, Eddie, at your smile. Maybe you recall hearing this song and singing with Libby, many years of joy together. And so I'll also kind of transition into some spoken remarks by saying really what a joy and an honor it was to speak with you, Bob, about your mom and just share stories and laughter, smiles, and also a few tears. And Eddie, we are here with you in love and support, and to share in your beautiful wife's memory and the blessings she brought to our lives. So one thing I gathered from the stories that I heard is that Libby was a woman who, in Bobby's words, had chutzpah. Another way of saying this is she wasn't afraid or ashamed to ask for what she wanted. And one of the most famous stories, which I'm a little happy that you saved in your comments, Bob, is the famous showdown at the Doubletree Hotel. I'm talking about, for folks that know this location, it's in Skokie, just a few moments away from the house that Eddie and Libby lived in and Bobby grew up in. And at this Doubletree, they would hand out to their hotel guests complimentary cookies. Now, Libby saw this as a golden opportunity. And as you can imagine, she would frequent the Doubletree and would help herself to these complimentary cookies. My understanding is she'd even keep some extras in the freezer as she collected more and more. Eventually, the Doubletree staff, they caught on to this, and they would affectionately, I think, refer to Libby as the Cookie Monster. And so we all kind of share in the joy of those recollections. But we also remember the long span of life that Libby enjoyed. And so we take a trip back in time to 1937 on the west side of Chicago. And this is where Libby Nevler was born. And she was the daughter of traditionally observant Jewish parents. Her mother Rose and her father Willie, or Villy, as pronounced with a heavy Yiddish inflection. From Albany Park to Hyde Park and eventually to Skokie and then to Carrington and Lincolnwood, Libby's life in some way represents the hallmarks of Jewish American life in Chicago. She loved and looked up to her older sister Jackie, and we're so moved to see that now Libby will be resting beside her beloved sister. And of course, she also enjoyed growing up with her younger brother Jordan. And Libby was something of a second mother to Jordan. In some ways, that independent spirit, that chutzpah, had been with Libby even since those early years growing up. And she just knew how to navigate the world. Her brother Jordan recalls many, many adventures around town, traveling in streetcars all over the city. Now, mind you, this was when Jordan was 7 and Libby was only 12 years old. So to make her way in the world and also to carry along with her loving brother, I think it speaks to that sense of spirit that Libby possessed. And as Bob said, Libby had that lifelong passion for travel, and I'll just maybe mention one little anecdote that Bob shared. One of the first big trips Libby hoped to take in her early adulthood was a trip to Israel, to the Holy Land. And her family was a little concerned about this because knowing Libby's tenacious spirit and who she was, they figured, well, if she goes to Israel, it's possible she's going to wind up meeting an Israeli guy on a kibbutz and she'll never come home. And so instead of the trip to Israel, Libby went on an adventure to Cuba. But of course, it was later in life with her beloved family she was able to get to Israel. And we also recall the moments when Libby met her beloved husband, Eddie. And they met at Temple Sholom, right here in the city on Lakeshore Drive. As the story goes, Eddie was sitting quietly on a chair. Libby takes the initiative, as you could imagine, and goes up to this strapping young man and says, "Do you have a light?" The rest is history. And starting the family and raising their beloved son, Bob, as you can imagine, Libby was fiercely devoted to her husband and son. Sometimes this could come across as worrying or anxiety. Bob recalls how his mom would always remind him to be careful when driving. But this maternal concern came naturally to Libby, and it was also balanced out by her incredible sense of humor. I was moved to hear Bob recall that every phone conversation would begin with a little bit of laughter. The humor came so easily to Libby, it was almost just her way of answering the phone. That signature chuckle. And there was also joy and warmth that would permeate from their home that Libby helped build in Skokie. In fact, every Friday in that house, Libby would clean and organize before Shabbat in a very unique way. Because her parents or her in-laws would be coming for a Shabbat dinner, everything had to be perfect and spotless. So Libby would put on a record, could be the Berry Sisters or Israeli folk songs, at full volume. And she would proceed to clean the house and create order out of chaos. And Bob would come home and people would visit the house and they'd have to shout over the loud music to get Libby's attention. But that was all part of the joy and part of the magic. And we heard about the championship ping pong ventures. We heard about the press releases and the news coverage. But we also recognize that Libby, above her passions, her hobbies, and her humor, she was singly focused and loving and supporting her family. When her mom had a stroke in 1980, Libby was there, arranged care for her, and took her into the home. Libby also treated her mother-in-law like a second mother. And perhaps this concern and this care for her loved ones drove Libby to always make sure that everyone had what they needed. Support and resources for education, for learning, food to eat and enjoy, and everything that her family needed to enjoy a good life together. In Bob's words, Mom was the brains and Dad was the brawn. Eddie would do the chores, the physical work, but Libby was always there to help direct and make sure everything got done well. And Libby also was a hard worker, spending many years as a real estate broker. And also, when financial challenges presented in the family, Libby was there. She rolled up her sleeves, and even at the age of 70, she went out and found herself a second career. And working for Blue Sky Marketing, Libby became a model employee. She would take it upon herself to house lots of merchandise for Blue Sky in Eddie and Libby's home. And she became one of the great employees of that organization. And so we take these moments to remember all of the joy, all of the laughter, some of the challenges, but through it all, the smile that we see in this wonderful picture, and the picture and the memories that we carry in all of our hearts, we know that we can say with full faith that Libby was an Eshes Chayil. She was a woman of valor. And we can also say, as we do in Hebrew tradition, Zichrona Livracha. These Hebrew words mean, may her memory be for a blessing. And so we'll turn to some more words of tradition. One of Libby's favorite prayers, which we all may recall from the High Holy Days, from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. A recording that Libby could have put on one of those Friday afternoons. And so we offer these words of the prayer Avinu Malkeinu in Libby's memory. Avinu Malkeinu Shema Koleinu Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu Ve'al כבוד עלינו ותפנו. אבינו מלכנו כלי דבר, אבינו מלכנו ורב מעלינו, אבינו מלכנו כלי חוצן ומסטין מעלינו, אבינו מלכנו כותבנו מספר חיים טובים, אבינו מלכנו חדש עלינו, חדש עלינו שנה טובה. At this time, we ask if you're able to please rise. We're going to recite an ancient memorial prayer known as El Male Rachamim. And in this prayer, we ask God, who is the source of compassion, to send rest and peace to the soul of our dear friend, parent, loved one, aunt, sister, Libby. And so let's read together in the English once again in our programs, and then we'll chant these same words in Hebrew. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Libby Lauria, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen. El mole rachamim shochein b'meramim, ametzei menucha nechona תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קרושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מסעירים, את נשמת ליבי שימה בת זאב ושלח לעולמה, בעל הרחמים, יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, וינוח בשלום משכבם, ונאמר Amen. And everyone can have a seat for just a few more moments. Yeah, we can have a seat. Once again, just want to express the sense of honor and gratitude I feel at being able to help in this moment. And so our service will conclude with one last reading. The words of the mourner's Kaddish tell us something perhaps surprising and interesting. The prayer that we devote in honor of those who passed away actually does not mention the word death at all. From this, perhaps we gather that in moments when our hearts are filled with sadness, as we say goodbye to loved ones, we also search our hearts for just a small measure of gratitude that God has granted us the gift of the life of Libby Lauria. and through her life, we are all connected in love and in memory. And so, at this time, we're going to lower the casket. And as we do so, thank you. Libby's son, Bob, will take part in an ancient tradition. We have here a small amount of soil from the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. And with this is the hope that we can, in Libby's final resting place, provide her a connection to the land of Israel, a place that she visited and knew, and also that her soul can, in our mystical tradition, find its way back to the holy city of Jerusalem. And so I'll hand this to Bob, and as the casket lowers. And at this time, we'll ask if everyone can please rise one last time. And we turn to our pamphlets and the words of Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on the back cover. We'll recite these words together, and then immediately after, we'll invite Libby's immediate family to take part in this ancient mitzvah, this ritual of shoveling earth on the resting place of loved one. And after the immediate family has done so, everyone who's gathered here will have an opportunity to do so. But first, let's recite these ancient words of comfort and healing, the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah Bi'alama divera chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala u'vizman kari v'imeru amen Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha berichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata la'amiran b'yoma v'imeru amen Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen Aseh shalom v'imramav Uya aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. May the one who creates harmony in the high heavens inspire us to create heaven here on earth and to provide comfort and healing to all those who mourn the death of our beloved Libby Lauria, to which we all say Amen. Thank you all very much.
As the cantor just mentioned, everyone's going to have opportunity to place several measures of earth into the grave in just a moment. Finally determined, the shiva will be at the Carrington at Lincolnwood, 3501 Northeast Parkway in Lincolnwood until 9 p.m. this evening. Memorial contributions in Libby's memory can be made to Tel's Yeshiva. That information is on the service folder received on the way in. And for those who are on the live stream, on behalf of the family, I want to thank you for joining. That information is on the funeral home website. Thank you so much.
There's one final song maybe we can kind of offer in this moment. The Mourner's Kaddish ends with the words Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Huya Aseh Shalom. And these words, I think, speak to the sense of hope that we have for our world, and also the sense of peace and shalom that we wish and send to all of Libby's family. So as we place the seal on this resting place, let's sing together this prayer for peace, Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru Amen. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Friends, anybody else who wishes to participate, please step forward at this time.
Shirley's children from the struggle. Remember the day we played this song? Lauria. All the way to the Shirley.
Yeah, there's over there. To the right. Yeah, to the right. Friends, in just a few moments, we are going to ask the cemetery staff to help close the grave. Turning to the mourners, we offer the ancient words of comfort. Hashem, comfort you among all those who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. This does conclude our service, friends. Thank you.